All right, well, welcome everybody to those that you are here. This is the Say Yes to My Future Forum, and my name is Cynthia Sanchez. I am the community organizer for the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Drug Prevention Unit at SAY San Diego, and this forum is in providing efforts for the San Diego Promise Neighborhood Program. So welcome everybody, and thank you all for being here. So just to give you a quick run through of what we're gonna be having today. So first off, introductions, just sharing a little background on SAY San Diego and the San Diego Promise Neighborhood Program. We're gonna be having a quick icebreaker, and then it'll follow up with a couple presentations from our key presenters, and then 2 presentations from our youth coalitions at SAY. And then we'll be displaying the poster contest winners and announcing the winner for the giveaway of the Eventbrite registrations. So thank you all, and now I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to Tyler so he can give you a little bit of background on SAY San Diego and San Diego Promise.
Hello, thank you, Cynthia. And as Cynthia was saying, this presentation has been organized by SAY San Diego. SAY San Diego is a local nonprofit with the goal of helping youth, families, and their communities reach their full potential by providing services and helping build partnerships. We are part of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Drug Prevention team that works to prevent substance use and substance abuse in San Diego through health communication, health education, advocacy, and other ways. And our work tonight is supported by the San Diego Promise Neighborhood, which is a federally funded program through the U.S. Department of Education. Its goal is to create a comprehensive pipeline of services through partnerships with different community organizations. SAY is just one of many partners in this program. And we are working to support the communities of Barrio Logan, Logan Heights, and San Ysidro.
Sorry, that hadn't changed.
That's okay.
Yes, and just to give you a little background on the campaign. So it's called Say Yes to My Future, and it's a virtual campaign in support of Red Ribbon Week and Prescription Drug Take Back Day, which were happening starting October 23rd through October 31st. And the purpose of the campaign is to provide education surrounding addiction and youth substance use, but also address the risk factors that can lead to such issues and provide information, education, but also resources on how to prevent, but also options for treatment. And really, we also created the campaign to provide students with a space to engage in healthy activities while they're at home right now, and just provide them with a platform where they can ask questions and learn more about youth substance use, but also give them the opportunity to engage in these healthy activities. All right, and now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the icebreaker. So we're gonna start with this video. And just as you're watching the video, just think about the points that are made in here, and then we're gonna follow up with a question regarding the topic discussed in the video.
And he goes, wait a minute, weed's a natural high. Because it comes from a plant. And I looked at him like, wait, what else comes from a plant? That's right, heroin, cocaine, tobacco. He's like, good point, good point. And he sat down.
Now, you know what? The best natural high, though, in terms of being studied is exercise. Who here loves to run? Any runners in the room? 3 people? Who here hates running? Everybody else? All right, okay. Here's something you should know about exercise. After 30 minutes of any exercise that gets your heart rate up, could be cycling, could be swimming, could be running, your brain releases chemicals. Do you know what they're called? Endorphins, nice. One of those endorphins is a funny name though. Anandamide. Anandamide gets released when you exercise for about 30 minutes or more. It improves your mood and improves your memory. Smoking weed, which, by the way, THC, the active ingredient in marijuana, looks so much like anandamide. Smoking weed has the opposite effect. Do that 3 or 4 times a week as a teenager, your mood gets worse, your memory gets worse. In your brain, you have one mechanism for producing highs, for making you feel happy. When you do it naturally, through sports, through laughter, through meditation, what happens is your brain releases these chemicals and you feel good, but it balances the chemicals. It never releases so much of the chemicals that it damages your brain tissue. But when you pursue a high with a drug, okay, you're forcing your brain into a state it doesn't naturally want to be in. And your brain responds by doing various things. First of all, your brain can become damaged if you give it too much of the chemicals, and it's toxic essentially for the pleasure center. But over time, let's say you use something like weed on a regular basis, your brain responds with something called homeostasis, which is it trying to maintain balance. You force your brain into a high state, the brain reacts by putting you in a low state to try to respond to it. And what we see over time is people who use drugs a lot, their everyday life becomes dull, gray, listless, and they start to use drugs just to feel normal. So you have a choice. You get to choose in your life how you're going to get a high. And this is the time in your life when it's so important. It's as important as choosing what kind of food are you going to eat. Are you going to pursue fast food that's unhealthy for you, that you know is going to lead to pretty negative health outcomes? Or do you choose slow food, more fresh, unprocessed foods if you can get your hands on them? What's your choice going to be? My name is Matt Bellis, and my natural high is surfing. Although today, can't do it. Broke my finger biking of all things. But you know what? I have lots of natural highs. Whether it's eating a great meal, cooking, gardening, laughing, telling jokes, it's all good. I'm in pursuit of natural highs. That's my mission in life.
All right, so then to follow up with a question, so what is your natural high, or tell us about a natural high that you would like to try? So in the video, he talks about how a natural high is basically any activity that you can engage in that kind of brings you happiness. That's what I got from it. So his natural high, he mentioned it being surfing. So just to share mine, my natural high is doing exercise. I like weight training, circuit training, and that just, it gets me ready for the day, and I do it every morning, and it just prepares me to take on the day's activities. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to Tyler so you could share what your natural high is.
Well, I'll share Jim's. He shared his in the comment box. Walking in the early morning in nature is what he does to get his natural high. For me, I think exercise is one. I play soccer, so that's one way, I really get those endorphins going. And, another thing too, I like to be around friends and family. So, catching up with friends, and if it's not in person, like I can't do today, then, calling someone. I just called my cousin this afternoon over the phone. So that was something that I did. Would anybody else like to share?
I guess I can share. Oh.
I can share. Everybody wants to share.
Go ahead.
All right. Hello, my name is Brian. So I guess my natural high would be going on morning jogs. Like for me, that helps me stay awake during the day, gets me started for the day. So yeah, I would say morning jogs. Am I supposed to popcorn someone?
You can.
All right. I'll popcorn Carlo.
Oh my gosh. I think my natural high, if I had to think about it, I think besides exercising, I think a natural high would be like going around restaurant surfing and like doing Yelp reviews. I have like a lot of, obviously COVID is kind of wild right now, so that's not recommended. But before all of this, I like going around restaurants and doing Yelp reviews on food. So I'm natural high. Popcorn, Rocio.
Thank you. My natural high is gardening. I picked up gardening in the summer, And it's just a really cool feeling, like being able to eat food that you grow. Like we grew so many tomatoes, like, and now I'm actually sad that winter's actually really here. So we're running low on our tomatoes, but it's a
Oh
great
no,
experience.
tomato shortage.
I'm gonna go ahead and popcorn it to one of our youth. Chris, what's your natural high?
I guess one natural high for me would be um, going to the beach and swimming to the deep end. Although it's really scary for me since I'm afraid of the ocean, but it also, you know, it's a natural high. And I guess I'll popcorn it to Diana.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. We had a couple in the chat. Mary Badner shared that she loves walking, but also laughing with friends and family, playing with her dogs. Bill shared that gardening, like Rocio, and exercising. Gardening is actually exercising, he said. So thank you all for participating. I'll pass it back to Cynthia.
Thank you, everybody. All right, so we're gonna move on to the presenters for tonight. So first up, we have Dr. Jim Lang. Dr. Jim holds a faculty position as a coordinator of alcohol and other drug initiatives within the Wellbeing and Health Promotion Department at San Diego State University's Division of Student Affairs. He's also currently serving on the advisory board for SAMHSA's Preventive Technology Transfer Center Network Coordination Center. This service fits within his history of advising many state and federal efforts. He is also a San Diego native. So with a warm welcome, I introduce to you Dr. Jim Lang.
Well, thank you very much. And so one of the things that I'm going to talk about is perhaps some future for young people, which is college. And so I am on a college campus, San Diego State University. And so that may be something along your horizon. And one of the things that would be really helpful as you think about entering in to your college experience is understanding some things about alcohol and drugs and how those might end up affecting your success. That's something that we're very concerned about at San Diego State and really every college and university. And so what I thought I would do, because I am on a college campus and we like to give tests here, I was going to start with a poll test of a little bit of information. So we can go ahead and let the students who are on answer a few questions to get us started. All right, I'll go ahead and read them because it might be, if some of you are looking on a phone or something, it might be hard to see these. So the first question is, what is dopamine? And you have some options. One is a type of drug, something that makes you a dope, a type of neurotransmitter. So go ahead and select a guess. It's fine to guess in this particular test, no penalty. Next question is, what is a neurotransmitter? One of the options is a chemical neurons used to communicate. Another option is a device to hear people's thoughts. Third option is a very small radio. And then the third question is, what is opponent process conditioning? And you got three options here. One is an exercise plan for getting in shape. Second option is a description of how bodies adapt to drugs. And third is various competing hair products. So with these questions, we can start a discussion. I'm going to go ahead and give you some answers. And in that process, I'll be echoing some of the video you saw about the natural highs, but talking about it a little bit differently. The first one asks about dopamine. And dopamine is actually a neurotransmitter, and it's a neurotransmitter that's been identified as part of the reward center of our brains. So that just used a whole lot of words that I'm going to go ahead and define for a little bit. So a neurotransmitter, what's a neurotransmitter? Neurotransmitters are the chemicals that neurons use to communicate with each other. Neurons are cells that are part of our nervous system, and your brain is part of your nervous system. So your brain has a lot of neurons, and they're cells that that need to send information back and forth around with each other, and they do that by something called a synapse. So there's a little gap between them, and inside that gap, one neuron will shoot some chemicals in, and the other neuron will receive those. And so those chemicals that go inside that little gap of those neurons are called neurotransmitters. Those are the information going from one neuron to another. And dopamine is one of those neurotransmitters. So inside your brain, there's a center that is really sensitive to the neurotransmitter dopamine, and cells are shooting that around, but they do it at a specific time. They do it when something happens that you should probably learn from. It's something that's good and maybe you should repeat. And that's how we learn, is we learn by repeating things that are positive and not repeating things that are negative. And how do we know this? Well, it comes from a feeling that we get from our reward center. And dopamine is a part of that center. The reason I'm telling you this is because it turns out all of the drugs that we would end up talking about, and alcohol too, that we would talk about in a session like this, impact the dopamine center, the reward center, in some way. They do it in different ways. Sometimes the drug itself is really close to being like dopamine, and it just kind of floods the system with it. Sometimes it triggers one cell to just shoot out dopamine for no good reason. Sometimes it affects the clearing out of dopamine within that gap between them, and so it keeps the sort of pleasure going of the reward. All of those are impacted, and that is why we find that people find drugs and alcohol something that they'd want to take. It is going to impact the reward center. But as that video you just saw talked about, there's balance that needs to happen in your body. What if we always had the reward center activated? Everything was rewarding all the time. How would you learn anything? How would you ever know that something is going to need to be repeated versus something that should be avoided? And this is true of humans, it's true of other animals as well. They need to be able to detect when something is like food that we want, or candy around Halloween, or whatever it is that is something that you'd want to repeat. Your brain needs to clear that system and get back to a place where it's ready to receive more information about our environment and whether or not we should do it again or not do it again. So your brain does try to clear all that out, and that's where he talked about the balance, right? So it doesn't work if it's always on. It needs to clear. When drugs are used to activate it, it does overshoot where it normally would. So the balance is messed up. So what happens is when it clears, it tends to overshoot the other way and then bring it back. So if you think about that scale, when you put a heavy weight on one, it shoots this way, but then it comes back, but it doesn't come back, boom, when you take the weight off. It comes back with some momentum and it goes like that. So your brain kind of does that too. So after a drug is experienced, there's the experience coming back, and a lot of times it's not pleasant, right? So if this is stasis, this is what he was talking about, homeostasis, where it's just kind of, that's where you are. Then there's reward, and then it shoots the other way. Well, what's the opposite of reward? Not a great feeling. And so then it has to come back. So what happens as you use a substance over and over again is your brain starts to guess what's going to come next. And so if the brain knows that this is not actually a real reward that we need to replace, it's just a chemical coming in, what it can do is it starts to actually balance the opposite way that the reward's going to shoot. So if the reward's going to shoot it in this direction, it will start going this way. And that's what's called opponent process conditioning, where you get conditioned to do the opposite of what's going to happen. So if you were to use a substance around the same group of friends over and over again, once those friends are there, it's going to start getting ready for the drug. It's going to prepare itself, and it's going to shoot the opposite way. And then when the substance is there, it might get up to the stasis level, or it might shoot up and you have some of that reward feeling again and then shoot down. But before that, it's a negative effect. And that negative effect is really, you can think of this as a way of describing a concept called withdrawal, where you're not getting the drug and it feels bad because the reward center is shot the other way. And people actually end up experiencing withdrawal symptoms in certain situations where they usually had used the substance before. These are all important ideas around really any of the drugs that we would end up talking about. And so it's useful for you to know these types of mechanisms that are happening in the brain. And when young people are using these substances, it's not just conditioning, but their brains are still developing. And so if your brain is still developing and you've set it up to be unbalanced at certain situations, then it's possible that your brain is going to take a turn in its developmental process, and it will set in place something that you may not want set in place at this point because it isn't the natural course that your brain was going to develop. And the brain development is really an important thing for people to think about. And it used to be, we kind of thought, well, when you're 16, 18 or whatever, your brain's done because it's not growing. But now we know that in fact, brain development moves on beyond, much beyond 16, 18, and really into 23, 24, 25. And so your brain is doing different things than just literally growing. It's actually shaping the way the neurons are connecting and figuring out ways of efficiently connecting information in your brain. And so that's some of the reasons why some concepts that you can get when you're older, you can't get when you're younger. It's because your brain is still working out how to set up these connections. If you impose an external thing like drugs into this process, those connections start to change in how they develop. And that is something that isn't necessarily going to be easy to undo when the brain is kind of done developing. So it's really important as people, high school, middle school, and even early college, understand that the drugs could be impacting what their brain is going to be developing like later on in various ways. And so something to think about as you're thinking about perhaps going to college and what you need for your college experience. You need your brain. It's one of the things we really want you to have a strong one of because you're going to need to use it a lot, both within your experience on campus, but then of course you're going to college for a reason. Probably is going to involve your brain too. So, so thinking about those things is really important. So one of the thoughts I'd have is like I've said, pretty much all of the drugs impact that dopamine system and might build in this pattern of I use the drug, I feel good, it overshoots. I've now built my body to automatically overshoot when it's not present. So now it's coming, that the drug just kind of gets you to there. Very similar to what that natural high video was talking about. What do you think the most common drug that's impacting, and it's a rather powerful drug that impacts the dopamine system, that young people end up, many young people end up using? You can put it in the chat and we can take a look and see what guesses you have for that. Caffeine was guessed. Any other guesses? Alcohol, okay, another guess. Nicotine, sugar. I'm gonna go with that nicotine one. For young people, it's actually one of the more common. It's still not over 50%, but it is one of the more common drugs that impacts the dopamine system that might impact a middle school or high school student. And in fact, that really has a potent effect on the dopamine process. And it's one of the reasons why people find it very difficult to stop using a nicotine product. Thinking about nicotine products, what are nicotine products? Go ahead and take a guess. Vape, got it already. Right now, it used to be, we talked about cigarettes with young people. Now, of course, we understand that vapes, and it used to be that actually people didn't understand. We used to call them electronic hookahs. That was like a 10-year-old description of these when they first came out, but now they just call them vapes. And a lot of times people didn't even know there was nicotine in them. Now a lot of people do know. And one of the things that I've been experiencing working with students at SDSU is that in high school, perhaps they started using a product like Juul. And then they really are regretting it and trying to figure out how to stop it. It's not easy. And so they're kind of awakening to the fact that they really didn't want to do that, but it's unfortunate. It's kind of late to decide that then, because you're going to have to go through some stuff to stop using a nicotine product. And it's going to take some not enjoyable feelings and really working on it. So something to think about if you are in middle or high school is that, first of all, most of you would not be using a vape product. It's not over 50% that are using vape products, even if it seems like everyone's using it, they're not. So go ahead and also not, because you're going to start a cycle that is going to be difficult to undo. And in fact, one of the things that I've found is that people often overestimate how many students are using various drugs. So actually, I went to a survey that's a very well done survey of students called Monitoring the Future. And if you ever have to do a report on alcohol or drugs and you need some statistics that you want to throw in there to wow your teacher, just type in, Google Monitoring the Future, because every year they come up with new statistics that are nationally representative, and they get it from both high school, middle school, and also college and non-college. So you can actually look at the different ages and the different ways. In fact, college and non-college, 18-year-olds who don't go to college, you can compare these things. And it's really interesting. And they ask about just about every drug out there, it seems like. And so I encourage you to use those as information. But, a lot of times people think they understand how much is used among college students. You may have some ideas of what college students tend to do. So I thought I'd ask, so what percent of college students do you think use a cannabis product like marijuana? You call it marijuana, you can call it other things. I usually like to call it cannabis. College students use cannabis or used it every day in the last 30 days. What percent of college students do you think have done that? Go ahead and guess in there. We got 33% as one. So like a third, literally a third, you think? Okay, what other guesses? 40? 15? A little more conservative on your guess. All right, well, the real answer is 5.9%. So really close to about 1 out of 20. So 19 college students, if you were to go are not doing that. But a lot of people believe it's like a third or fourth. I mean, there's sometimes people will say 60 or 80. It's like, no, that's not what's going on. And in fact, college students are less likely to do use cannabis every day. For the non-college, same age, it's 9.4%. So it's about twice as likely, but still less than 10%. So it's not the case that everybody's doing it or everybody's doing it all the time. In fact, it's really rare to encounter someone who is, but a lot of times people notice those people who are, and so they get it in their head that that's what everyone's doing. It's not. And the same was true with let's say cocaine. What do you think the percent is in the last 30 days using any cocaine for college students? Let's see, we got 5%, 3%, you drop down, you see where I'm going with this, right? It's going to be smaller than you think it is, kind of low. Okay, here's the number, 0.6%. It's not even 1% who have used cocaine in the last 30 days. And so those numbers, I think, help understand, because we often talk about peer pressure and things like that. But the peer pressure is often in your mind. You think people are doing it, but actually it's not nearly as common. So if you are actually in the majority and not intending to use alcohol or other drugs at this age, because you're thinking about your brain development, you're thinking about your future, you're thinking about not getting in trouble, you understand that you can do things to feel good without it, you're actually in the majority, and know that. And just because there's some other people doing it doesn't mean that it is the peer environment. The peer environment is what you make of it, and it's something that you control, and you can make sure that you're surrounding yourself with that majority of people who are not interested in engaging in that. They understand what it's all about, and they also are thinking about either SDSU or other campuses that they want to be able to go to next, and it really helps to keep that brain developing the way it's supposed to, without all these other chemicals coming in. And I think I have been given 2 minutes if there's questions that I can answer, if I clocked myself correctly.
Do you want me to share the results from the poll?
Oh yeah, sorry, didn't see that there were respondents. So nice. So neurotransmitter, you knew it. That's great. Chemical that neurons use. So you guys knew this stuff, right? I do this. The reason I do that usually, if we were in a great environment where there was, you were in the same room with me, I would have candy for people who just guessed. And you'd be getting candy, and we'd talk about how good it is to feel like you got a reward. And I'd talk to you about that candy. And think about this for Halloween. How fun is it to get the candy? And it's fun even before you taste it, even before you put it in your mouth. It's not actually the candy that you're tasting that's rewarding. It's the understanding of what candy is, that it is a reward. And your brain actually knows this and will start activating that dopamine system even without anything entering in. And that's, kind of goes back to that natural high idea, that it is not necessarily the substance, it is the action that is activating many of the cycles and the rewards that people are experiencing, either with drugs or with candy or other things. So anyone who guessed, anyone who put in there, I'm going to give you the right to demand one extra piece of Halloween candy because you went ahead and did that guess, and that's the way I usually do the presentation.
I have a question for you, Dr. Lang. Say someone starts to smoke cannabis at 16, and then they just heard maybe that they've influenced their brain development by doing that. If they think like, well, maybe I shouldn't stop because it's already too late. I've already affected my brain development. So what's the point? Is that true when we're thinking of brain development, or did they?
No, it's not. Your brain, the process that's happening. One of the things where they found the effects of using either alcohol or cannabis at early ages is a process called neural pruning. And it's kind of surprising because a lot of times people think about, well, you killed brain cells. It's not about killing brain cells. It's about changing the way the organization of the brain happens. And that happens actually by removing some of the neurons so that you can have more efficient communication between parts of your brain and when you're trying to address certain questions, tough questions like the one you just gave me. So it's that process. That process can continue. And so if you were to stop, it can continue, and you can have continued brain development that is going to be more along the lines of what it would have been otherwise. But do know that what we've been finding through the research is that early use may make it more difficult to stop. And so stopping now would be a great idea, because the longer you do that early in your teens, the harder it will be later in life. And so making the choice now to say, okay, this maybe I'll revisit this when I'm in my mid-20s, or maybe I'll decide I'm done with it. But give your brain some time to recover from it and to finish its development and make some choices with your situation later on in life. All right, well, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, last call. Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, well, thank you, Dr. Ling. That was great information. It felt like I was back in a biology class learning about all these processes. So yeah, it was really great, and I hope you all learned something new from it as well. So let me go back to sharing here. Okay, so next up, we have from the Macalester Institute, Carly Harch. Carly is an associate marriage and family therapist and is the program manager for the Macalester Institute South Teen Recovery Center. The Macalester Institute provides substance use abuse treatment, recovery, and education for adolescents who are using, misusing, or abusing alcohol and other drugs. They have different locations all throughout San Diego, and Carly leads efforts to serve teens in the southern region. So it's a pleasure to have you, Carly, and welcome. I'll go ahead and pass the mic on to you.
Hello, everyone. Let me just get my PowerPoint up. Okay, so again, I'm from the South Teen Recovery Center. We do have a lot of different, we serve different populations here at Macalester, different ages, but the specific one that I work for is in Chula Vista. I've been here for about 6 years. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist, and I'm the program manager. So I do play different roles here at the center. For the agenda today, we're going to talk about substance use trends among adolescents, trends at STRC here at South Teen Recovery Center, risk associated with cannabis use as an adolescent, risk of addiction and factors, risk related to substance use as an adolescent and their triggers, some warning signs, how can Macalester help, and we're going to talk about South Teen Recovery Center and what we offer here. And then we can end it with questions and my contact information if you need any assistance. So first I wanted to share the substance use trends among adolescents, and this information is pulled from throughout the United States. So just an example, in 2018, there were about a little over 4,600 overdose deaths among youth aged 15 to 24. And that's a lot. And in 2020, 40% of young people had used illegal drugs by the time they graduated from high school. So that's about 5% of 8th graders, 20% of 10th graders, and then it goes up to 24% for 12th. So overall, 78% of teens indicated that their doctors or dentists never spoke to them about how addictive, dangerous prescription drugs can be. Some teens are prescribed prescription drugs, and they do need a little more education on that. 55.8% of teens indicated the main deterrent to using alcohol or drugs was their parents. So getting the parents involved is very important to the client's success. Here are some trends that I see here at our center. For substance use, we do see a lot of marijuana use, and it is used as a gateway drug. We see Xanax. Substance use is to use for coping. A lot of kids here have ADHD, and they cope and use marijuana to help with the symptoms of their ADHD. Again, vaping is very popular among adolescents, and there are some other substances that they do use, such as meth and cocaine. And with that, there comes with mental health. There's depression, there's anxiety, suicidal thoughts, peer pressure, there's trauma and family issues. So it's not always just the substance use. Many of our clients come with mental health concerns. Some of the risk associated with cannabis use as adolescents, again, brain development is a huge deal. Cognitive functions, cognitive development, and long-term risk. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, unfortunately for teenagers, marijuana use has had much more long-term effects. The teenage brain is not yet fully mature, with neurodevelopment continuing at least the early or mid-20s. During adolescence, so when they are teens, the brain is particularly sensitive to the exposure and marijuana use impacts on how connections are formed within the brain. And these are some risk of addiction and their factors. So of course, genetics is going to be a factor. The chemical reactions that occur in a person's brain when they are addicted are noticeably different than the ones that occur in a person without one. So this is with an addicted personality. That is why some people can smoke cigarettes on occasion for pleasure, while others need much more frequently in order to function. Another one is environment. Environment factors can also increase a person's risk of addiction. Children and teens whose parents are inadequately involved in their lives may take more risk and experiment with drugs and alcohol. A young person who experiences neglect or abuse from parents may also turn to alcohol or drugs as a way to cope. And then early use. Age is another one for risk factors for addiction. The National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism conducted a survey that showed that young adults from the ages 18 to 24 were more likely to have both drug addiction and alcohol use disorders. If a person starts using drugs or alcohol when they are young, it can have an effect on their brain development again and make them more susceptible to mental health disorders when they get older. And last but not least, having the method of use and the drug of choice. So depending, like I said before with our trends at STRC, marijuana can be a gateway drug, meaning that they're going to start off with marijuana, but eventually could possibly get introduced to other drugs, and that could lead to a risk factor for addiction. And then risk related to substance use as an adolescent and their triggers. So what are triggers? Triggers can be social, environmental, emotional cues that remind an addict of their past use. This reminder causes urges and later cravings to the use that could lead to relapse. So some external triggers could be people, places, and things, and internal triggers, feelings and thoughts, including stress. And here are also some other triggers that could happen. Some of us use the method HALT. Are you angry? Are you hungry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? We have a lot of our teens who experience this. Most of the time they're bored, and that's when they relapse the most. Perceived negative emotions, stress, mental, physical illness, social isolation, and the list goes on, but these are some of the examples. And here are some warning signs. These warning signs can be for beginning of substance use, or they can also be when you see that someone could potentially start to relapse. So for example, when they distance themselves, when they start hanging around with the people they used to when they were using, when they think they just can use one time and not use ever again, when they're being defensive about it. So here are some examples of some warning signs that you can look for in your child, or you can look among your peers as well. And it's important to point them out to your peers or your child, and maybe it's not substance use, maybe something is wrong with them. And this could also be, warning signs of depression or warning signs of anxiety. So it's always good to ask. And how can McAllister help? So like I said, there are many locations, different level of cares. We have residential, we have detox, we have sober living. I work at the outpatient South Teen Recovery, but we do serve all ages and all populations. So South Teen Recovery Center is an outpatient program for adolescents between the ages of 12 and 17. STRC is in the South Bay area. We provide intensive outpatient services, and recovery services. Our hours are Monday through Friday from 9 to 7, and on Saturdays as needed, by appointment only. During intakes, the staff explains the program in detail, and we assess the client to see where they're at with their substance use. And here are some of the services that we provide. In addition to treatment, we provide case management, individual counseling, family sessions. We do group activities, recovery activities, education classes, process groups, gender-specific, evidence-based curriculum. We have like a gender-specific program, and then through our MOUs with our outside agencies, we have San Ysidro Health Centers come in and we talk about HIV, TB, and STDs for healthy relationships, healthy eating, and much more. And we also have the mental health component. We have an associate marriage and family therapist, an associate social worker, and we provide the individual mental health therapy. Does anyone have any questions or comments? You guys, if you need me outside of the presentation, you can email or call for referrals or any questions on my program or anything. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Carly.
you, Carly. I know I have a question for you, actually. I know we work closely with San Diego High School, and I think there's an outpatient clinic there. Is that run by McAllister as well, or is that a different?
Where is it located?
San Diego High.
Yeah, you know, I think they might have one there. We do, we have like satellite schools where we have contracts with them through the county. It's called SchoolLink. And so on my side, we have Otay Ranch High School in Montgomery. So if the schools were open, we would be able to go on campus and provide services there. So it probably is the same thing.
And what's the best way with things the way they are now and people not going to school? What's the best way to get connected to services right now?
So we never closed. We're always seeing our clients face to face if they like, but we do have telehealth options, and we can do telephone sessions, we can do via telehealth, whatever they're comfortable with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. And have you seen an increase in the need for services just because of the current times and people looking for things to do? And
I think in the beginning, it was the same, but I think after, let's say, 4 or 5 months of being on lockdown, our teenagers got very frustrated and bored, so they started misbehaving. We had a lot of runaways. We had a lot of, in other centers in different communities, we had getting in trouble, violation of probation. So I think they're getting bored, but a lot of our clients now, they want to come to our program because that's the only thing they can do. So we have them come in early if they want, and we can help them with their homework or whatever they need.
thank you. All right, well, if there are not any other questions, we'll go ahead and move on to the next presenter. All right.
All right. I am unmuted. Excuse me. All right. It's my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Jim Cahill. He is the Director of Integrative Medicine at Urban Street Angels, where he is responsible for the delivery of integrative medical and holistic services for the Just Be You program. He's also responsible for research collaboration with UCSD and the County of San Diego, closely monitoring the novel applications of biometric and self-regulation technologies for self-awareness and self-regulation. A former brain researcher and biotech CEO, Jim actively networks with tech and business sector colleagues to share the Just Be You mission and encourage creative engagement with the innovative program. Today, he will be sharing an interactive presentation, which is titled Natural Minds, Unnatural Highs, Happiness Through Self-Awareness. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Tyler. Well, it's an honor to be here. These are great presentations and information, and all super valuable and really familiar to me and my staff at Urban Street Angels. We are working with, we're a new nonprofit. We've only been around a couple of years, and we are working under an innovation program where our job is sort of like a high-tech startup to look at the homeless youth ages 18 to 25, the so-called transitional age youth who've experienced homelessness or have unstable living situations, and who also are mostly been affected by substance use and starting quite early. And in addition to that, what are called co-occurring issues that often go along with that, with a young early start with substances, both licit and illicit drugs, pharmaceuticals that are bought off prescription, and something not prescribed by the nurse or the doctor, as well as the marijuana, which is now legal, but radically different than it used to be. That's very important to know. The marijuana that is now legal is radically different from the product that gave marijuana its original reputation. I'll talk a little bit about that and why that's important. Most of our youth are dealing both with substance use dependence and addiction, as well as all of the things that Dr. Carley at the McAllister Institute talked about. Things like depression and anxiety that can be triggered by misuse, overuse of these drugs. And so I want to talk a little bit about what we do at Urban Street Angels as one way of addressing this, which is when we meet a youth who's been living on the streets or living in a very unstable housing situation, and they have a long history of using drugs and have been in a developmental pattern. Of course, they're in a developmental arc, still on their way towards full adulthood as the brain continues to develop well into the 20s. So it's very easy to have drugs affect our stability, especially when we're young. And so many things are happening socially, so many things are happening at every level of our life. And then if we add that accelerator of drugs or that depressor of drugs, it really puts us on the sidelines instead of in the center of the game. It puts us on the excitation side of the sidelines or on the deeply relaxed towards the tranquilized side of the sidelines, as opposed to that middle ground where the game is best played and where the lessons are learned. And so this pushing to the extremes is one of the things we see that triggers the mental health challenges that we're seeing with our youth, directly related to the, especially the potency of the marijuana legalization and how common marijuana use is nowadays. One really important thing to understand about that is that marijuana has become legal, but it is anywhere from, double to 6 to 10 times more potent than it used to be. So if we can imagine a drug that's been used in society for a long time, like nicotine, let's say a cigarette, or let's say a beer, that beer in the hand of a person 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, it's more or less the same beer. It more or less has the same effects. That cigarette that was in the fingers of somebody or in a pipe 1,000 years ago is more or less the same pipe or cigarette, but not so with marijuana. Imagine that beer looking like a single beer, but it's actually 6 beers. But it can be, you can drink it in the same speed of 1 beer. So how we have this, now we have this radical increase in potency, and we know that potency matters. Imagine the nicotine or in a cigarette increasing 6 times. And this happened just within my own lifetime. However, while the potency has gone way up, the perception in surveys, for example, let's say 12th graders who've been surveyed and asked, what harm do you think there is in the use of marijuana? It has stayed flat. And we know that the more potent something is, the more radical it is. The more radical it is, the more speed wobbles it causes in a developing brain or in a person's behavior, in their life, in their perception of their future, in the decisions they're making right now. You get speed wobbles, like if you've ever gone too fast on a skateboard. And so the perception has stayed flat, but the potency has gone off the charts. So we're in a very strange situation where culture, reality hasn't caught up to what has happened at a simple, measurable chemical level in marijuana and marijuana products today. So it's very important to know that the marijuana that we're seeing today has a reputation of being kind of cool and chill and something from the 60s and 70s and Woodstock, and you know, when it became sort of famous. You can't think about Woodstock when you think about modern marijuana. You got to think a lot more about the Iran-Iraq war. You got to think about Afghanistan. You got to think about significant harm. You got to think about significant danger. So we have a situation now where we have old cultural ideas and habits, but we have essentially a new drug. And there's a real mismatch there. So we're seeing a lot of that affecting our homeless youth, especially the population that I see. So our approach to it is to let the psychiatrists do their job, let the nurse practitioners do their job, let the psychotherapists and the family counselors do their job. And then in addition to that stabilizing, returning to a stable mind, we add natural elements. For example, we teach yoga and we teach meditation. We teach chiropractic care. We offer massage and acupuncture so that our youth are getting the experience of natural highs. And none of these natural highs are exciting type of natural highs. These aren't like surfing. This isn't like skateboarding. This isn't like being rad and ripping down the hill. It's not like any of that. These are natural highs that are a different type than, for example, what surfing delivers. Those trigger endorphins. Remember the earlier speaker on the video talked about after 30 minutes of exercise, you're going to get a release of these endorphins, which feel pretty good. It's a natural high. But that's just one kind of high. And most of society is really excited and focused on these very intense natural highs. But throughout the history of being human beings, throughout evolution, these excitation type of highs, only saying being high equals being excited high, it's relatively new. It's only been around for about 100 years that the best kind of high is the excited high. Throughout most of human history, it was recognized that the more moderate, friendly, sustainable, everyday, calm type of interaction was the best bet you could make. And that always seeking these highs was considered kind of juvenile, kind of a young person's view of life, and that it's unsustainable because for every high there's a low. So we talk about endorphins, and endorphins get a lot of press, but that's just one of over 100 different neurotransmitters. And human beings have over 40 different neurotransmitters. And yes, the endorphins have an effect of this sort of high elation, but there's these other transmitters like oxytocin. And those are natural chemicals that induce a feeling of bonding. And you get them through friendship. You get them through social closeness. And isn't that cool? And they don't peak and then crash like endorphins or caffeine or nicotine or methamphetamine or cocaine and all these other things. You don't get that rapid peak. And as we talked about, and as Dr. Lang talked about, how the body's always pushing back. If you're using, and you've been doing it for a while, the body knows, and it says, oh, I know you're coming. I know you're coming, and I don't want to let you hit that edge of the playing field because it's dangerous out there. You might pop out the other side and not make it back. So the body's always pushing back. And it has a sweet spot, and that's what's called homeostasis. Homeo meaning sort of same or similar, and stasis meaning sort of also the same thing, sort of state. Snaking around, you know, having a bit of high and a bit of low. I exercised, that was fine, and now my body's getting tired. I ate and got blood sugar, and now it's time to digest and let the blood sugar go down. Oh, I'm hungry again. I had a very active day. I did a lot of things in the daylight. Now it's nighttime. And this is the central principle, the central rule of the universe that shows up in the human body, in all bodies. It always works best in balance. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And system by system, molecule by molecule, every part of us does that. The body likes to keep us in this sort of middle ground. What these drugs do is they hijack this natural system and they say, well, I kind of like this part of being high. I like being really awake, really laughing with my friends, really moving fast on the skateboard or the surfboard, really, 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 and we try to push it and sustain it. Now, if the drugs worked, if they actually delivered on the promise, no problem. But they don't. They don't work. They don't deliver what they promise because the body's always pushing back. And like Dr. Lang said, after a while, the body's already pushing back so much, ready for the drug to come, that if you don't take the drug, it'll push you in the opposite direction so bad it hurts. Way worse than the high before it comes back. And this is what happens when you come down off of drugs. It'll happen the day after, a little bit, but imagine doing it for weeks, months, years. It happens much stronger. This is the coming down, the horrible period of coming down. And that's natural. It's not because you're poorly made, it's because you're beautifully made. Nature wants to keep us in this flexible middle. And the reason I go like that, it's not a straight line. It's not like you're the same level of alertness through the entire day. The same amount of blood sugar the entire day. Every system, sugar in your blood, adrenaline in your blood, goes like that, up and down. So the trick is not to try to hold on to one side of it, but to get good at playing the whole field. Not trying to cheat the system with these toxic outside chemicals that are way too intense and the body was never ready for them, was never built for them. Body has no idea what this stuff is. It just does what it thinks it should do when it sees something kind of like that chemical. But trying to hold on to it and keep it going is toxic, and sometimes it's deadly. It just doesn't work. And so what we tell our youth and what the youth tell us back is that, yeah, I don't feel crazy or stupid for wanting to feel good. It's just not a great idea because it doesn't work. But what does work? What does work? We're not bad for liking adventure. We're not bad for liking to feel up or sometimes to feel super chill. That's as natural as love. That's as natural as a good day with your friend. That's as natural as sliding down a hill. It's as natural as catching a wave. Nothing wrong with that. The problem starts when you try to artificially hold it. When the artificialness and the desperation comes in to define your whole life as just this. Because we're complex. We're made to be complex. We're made to be flexible. We're made to have all of these moods and these feelings. And so one of the neat things about the natural medicines that we use, yoga and meditation and adjustment of the back and the neck muscles and the head muscles, chiropractic and adjustment, and acupuncture, which releases this natural chemistry, and of course massage, which feels so wonderful and releases oxytocin. What they all have in common is they're not trying to put you in some giant high. It's not trying to tell you that life is only good when you're intense. It's not just trying to take one side of the flow and say that's the good side and all this is the bad, boring side. It's teaching us to embrace the entire thing, to get used to, like a connoisseur who can eat a piece of plain French bread, little crouton of plain French bread, but knows so much about it, has thought so much about it, has spent a life paying attention to all the subtleties that go into beautiful, let's say a sourdough French bread, right? That when they put that in their mouth, the pleasure they get is amazing. Where the amateur tries it and says, yeah, it's pretty good. But the connoisseur, the gourmet, has studied on it and brought it in their attention and scaled down and taken something that would seem small because of appreciation, because of becoming more sensitive to what's already out there in nature, by paying attention again and again and practicing, they find great pleasure in small natural things. And this is how the body is made. The body is made to get really, really good at the sources of things that reward us. It's no problem when we do that in nature. But we live in a funny time where some of us human beings have tried to hack the system to have a do-it-yourself environment and create this artificial hack that actually does push us to this high temporarily, but it sets us up for a fall every single time. Every drug that we have studied has this effect. It's built into our system. So what Dr. Jim said about anticipating the goodness of a piece of Halloween candy, right? When he talked about, it's not that you get the candy and then you're happy. It's not the stuff. It's not the molecule in the candy that makes you happy only. It's the gourmet in you. Like the amateur gourmet who's just getting good at it. And little kids are great at this, anticipating that chocolate. Remember those guys who give you the whole Hershey bar at their house? I can still remember the houses that gave the whole Hershey bar, right? And the full-sized ones, right? And the anticipation. I can't wait till we get to the Johnson's house. Those guys always give the full-size Hershey bars, right? And talk about it with your friends and the social connection, oxytocin, right? The appreciation, memory, natural high already in us, talking about it with your friends, getting the Hershey bar, add the chemical to it, great, but the chemical always goes down. But then afterwards, yet the next day, how good was that Hershey bar we got from the Johnsons, right? Now that's a skill that you can push. You go to the extreme of appreciation through natural behaviors by attending again and again and again to what's wholesome and healthy and repeatable without harming you. You're playing the game the way nature intended you to. Nature intended that whatever we pay attention to over and over again, we become expert at. Why did nature give us pleasure on in our skin? Why did nature give us pleasant thoughts? Why did nature give us pleasant emotions? Because it's nature's way of saying, a certain amount of this is probably good for you. A certain concentration of this, it's good for you. It's good for you. That coconut milk is really sweet. It's really, really good. I love running across the savannah and chasing a rabbit. That's cool. That's fast. That rabbit's faster, but it's cool to run, right? I like laughing with my friends. I like singing around the campfire. All this stuff came from the village times, not modern times, where we're able to concentrate things. Around village times, somebody told a story. It took like an hour. It was probably the same story that's been told for 1,000 years. And we calm down and we listen and we appreciate the storyteller. We don't get bored 5 minutes in and then channel surf to try to find a better story. The capacity to appreciate natural things is built into us. If we use artificial things, we blow it. We go outside the natural playing field. And it always hurts. There is no intense high ever discovered that can be maintained. There's a crash for every one of those. But those who play the middle ground wisely, increasing their ability to appreciate even a little crouton, or a stamp collector, or a musician who hears nuance in music, didn't used to, but after a while, it's like, whoa. Listen to that note. Listen to that transition right there. How sweet is that? An artist who says, look how these colors gel together. A poet, any expert in any field, a master soccer player, an elite athlete, gold medalist, world champions. They see aspects of the game that the amateur does not see. How did they get there? Special eyeballs? No. Practice. Practice. Going in deep to something sustainable, natural, and wholesome. Going in deep, our nervous system comes alive. Our nervous system knows what to do with that. That's what it was made for. It's a perfect fit. Michael Jordan hits that jumper. He sees stuff and feels stuff and walks away from the game afterwards thinking about different stuff than the amateur. That's what expertise is. We're wired for it. And our greatest expertise is enjoyment, is finding what we love and going deeply into it, and not these artificial placeholders that displace the natural systems, that get in the way, that damage us as they pretend to deliver the satisfaction that's lasting and never is. So we teach this in a variety of ways through direct experience, requiring no gadgets, requiring no chemistry, but simply people like telling a story around a fire, face to face, about these lessons that nature delivers. And so I think the take-home message here is that within you is already the capacity to go way beyond what the drugs offer. Within you is the wisdom to know and pay attention to what you love. The trick is to surround yourself with people and trainings and personal dedication and setting yourself up for success like you mean it, to double down on everything that will keep you on this path of going deep into what you love, and not let the drugs get in the way and obscure by their pretense, by their false promises, obscure what actually works for you. So thanks very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. I feel relaxed now. I feel like I just went through meditation.
I have a question for you, Jim. What are some of the practices that you found work best with the youth to kind of get them back to center, help stabilize them?
Yeah, one of the things, everyone's probably heard of meditation and yoga, and yoga was really invented to prepare people for meditation. It had nothing to do with looking pretty in yoga clothes. It was all about getting the body energy flowing and out so that you could sit still, move a lot, get it out of your system so that you can center and sit still. And then once you sit still, then there's still something moving, which is the jumpy mind, that wonderful, curious, natural mind that we have that loves to look at new stuff and be stimulated, right? So something's still moving. And in meditation, that thing that's moving is usually the attention. And think of it like a little funnel. And whatever's in the funnel is really what the mind is looking at, right? And so usually we're looking at our thoughts, little ideas, internal chit-chat, dialogue, hopes and fears and attitudes and personality stuff and memories and images. So it's a very busy place. This is called the conceptual part of our mind or our brain, right? And it fills up our funnel most of the time. When they test people, they find that most of the time, people's minds are not where they are right now, thinking about what they're doing. They're usually off somewhere, mostly in the future. Statistically, mostly thinking about the future, kind of worrying about it, and making up big stories that tend not to be true. So the mind tends to sort of wander. And the more of a habit we get into wandering the mind, or letting our mind wander, the research shows that you're less happy. A mind that knows how to sit still, like we first did yoga so the body could sit still, and then we're prepared to let the mind and the attention sit still. A mind that's trained to do that, and meditation is a great way of training it, creates happier people. It actually changes the tissue in the brain and grows the part of the tissue that says, hey, this is worth doing. Don't need to jump around. Just pay attention to the colors in front of you, the flavor that might be in your mouth, the beauty of the feeling of your breath and being alive. You feel your flesh, feel your blood flow, feel your heartbeat, feel your vibrancy as a human creature, feel your aliveness. And so there's all kinds of interesting meditations, but what they have in common is they say, take that wandering mind, that wandering attention, and place it on one thing for a while. One of the most common ones is just pay attention to your breath. Fill up that whole funnel because that's all the brain sees is what's in there. Fill up that whole funnel with the feelings of your breath as it flows in and out. And of course, the mind's going to wander, and you say, okay, no big deal, but just bring it back. You might get a half a breath in before you wander again. Okay, no big deal. So a lot of the teaching is about no big deal. Come back again. You might get there for 2 whole breaths. Hey, what about that? Oh, no big deal. Come on back. But after a while, just like training a beautiful little puppy to sit, and it's like, no, come on, sit. Sit. Eventually it goes, all right. And instead of boredom, this is so interesting, instead of boredom, because you might think, what good's that? What we discover is power. What you discover is the ability to be more sensitive to what's out there in front of you. You become more aware of your own impulses so you can catch them early if they're not good impulses. You become more aware of opportunities to let your heart go and really love somebody, really love something, really get to know what brings your heart up and gets you interested so your own values become more obvious. It's the most fascinating thing I've ever discovered, is the capacity of sitting still to allow you to travel. Isn't that interesting? By sitting still, you know what direction you want to go. So meditation is one of the central parts of this, but it's really self-knowledge, sitting still long enough to become an expert on how your mind works. And then you can use that mind like a laser instead of a flashlight swinging all over the place. If you bring that laser light of your mind, all that wonderful mind, into one place, you can change a swinging flashlight into a laser. You can make light cut metal. Concentrated intelligence, like concentrated light, can do things that jumpy minds could never do. And that's why some of these meditation experts, I mean, they go to colleges and they get PhDs like this. It's amazing how many of these like meditation experts have 1, 2 PhDs and really, really sharp minds. But they'll tell you the information that they learned didn't make them happy. The way they held the information in their hearts was everything.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
That was great information. I hope everyone learned something new today or reinforced something that they already knew and kind of learned a new practice or learned a new idea or a new fact that you can take from here and share with somebody else. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next. So thank you to all the presenters too for taking the time to be here today and sharing all of your knowledge and your expertise with us. It was truly, truly great. So thank you so much. All right, and then up next we have our Youth Coalition. Tyler, if you want to go ahead and present them.
Yeah, so it's my pleasure to present ACT to all of you. ACT is a youth-led effort staffed and convened by SAY San Diego and devoted to improving community health and safety, especially in the area of drug and alcohol abuse prevention. ACT operates year-round and involves youth leaders ages 12 to 16 as part of SAY San Diego's larger alcohol, tobacco, and other drug prevention programs in the Central Region. Please welcome ACT members Chris, Kimberly, and Diana. Go right ahead. The mic's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone is doing great in this night or afternoon. My name is Chris Cole. I'm the chair of Advocates for Change today and a junior at Hoover High School.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Flores. I'm the co-chair of ACT and a junior at Hoover High.
Hello, my name is Diana Soni. I am a senior at Health Sciences High.
So, what is ACT? Well, ACT is an organization that cares strongly about the health and well-being of our community. We are leaders that strive to make a difference and improve the lives of those who've been affected, as well as everyone else. We understand the usage of drugs and the impact that it negatively affects the youth and future generations. Because as members, we believe that change only comes when someone cares enough, and we are those people. ACT's mission is to reduce the use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs by youth in the mid-city area of the city of San Diego by addressing local issues relating to public health and safety that affect our neighborhoods. We spread awareness by meeting weekly and designing projects that address the issues affecting the health of the youth community. We also table at community events.
Oh no. I think her connection broke up. There you
In Advocates for Change today, there's always a busy schedule of what projects, campaigns, or events we must host. One of these projects are the retail assessments we conducted in liquor stores during the summer. We would enter a liquor store with a checklist to see if these stores would follow store protocols. We also influenced the vote on the ban of flavored e-cigarette and vaping products by speaking in the Board of Supervisors meeting. Last year, we developed a campaign called Escape the Vape to address the vaping epidemic facing teens in our community. The Escape the Vape campaign is a campaign where we raise awareness about the effects of vape products and e-cigarettes, and we denormalize the usage of those products. Here you can see that we hosted a media event with Supervisor Nathan Fletcher to bring awareness to our campaign and to bring unity in our community against vape and e-cigarette products. We would also display our campaign in billboards all around our community so that we could bring the attention of the Escape the Vape campaign towards our community. We usually display them you could see them all through university. I don't know if they're still up right now, but before they were, you could see the billboards of our campaign.
Hello, my name is Diana. I joined ACT during the summer because I wanted to have community service hours since I am applying for college this year. My cousins told me about ACT and I decided to see what it was about. So I went to the meeting. After the meeting, I realized that I was interested in ACT and its mission to reduce tobacco products by youth, and is why I am a part of ACT. When I joined, everyone was welcoming, and I realized it was a great opportunity to spread awareness in our community and the future of the youth. I remember that in one meeting, someone was talking about the damages of drugs to the brain, which was beneficial since I want to major in neuroscience. ACT teaches me many things, and I am able to make our community better for future generations.
Hi everyone. The reason I joined ACT was because I have younger siblings, and one in particular is my brother. He goes to middle school, and he has told me stories of seeing his peers vape in bathrooms, PEs, and classrooms, as well as these products being sold in school. Likewise, I've experienced these activities in my school. It is shocking how easy youth have access to these kinds of products. I don't want the youth today, nor future generations, to grow up in an environment that normalizes youth interactions with drug use and alcohol abuse. I joined because I also believe it is my responsibility to do my part as a member of my community to create a safe place and healthy place for youth to grow and inspire.
My reason on why I joined ACT was mainly because I I don't want to see the same community that I see right now affect my brother, who is 5 years apart, younger. Um, and there's just some things I've seen around the streets that I wish he wouldn't see or even do. There was this I remember seeing this one kid around Marlborough Street smoking hookah. He looked about 11 years old or maybe even younger, and he was just taking a hit with some other adult that was near him, and it just shocked me and it just made me think of my brother. It really, I would never want to see that happen to my brother or even him experience what I saw. Yeah, and I thought if I could change my community, I guess it would start, you know, uh, I guess it would be beneficial on my family. So, speaking of family, we are family. Don't think we're just an ordinary group. ACT is a band of high school students and adult advocates who together are a big family, and anyone like yourselves can become part of our family, whether it's joining ACT or simply by spreading awareness of the harmful effects of any drug product. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation. If you have any more questions, you can email Rocio or just follow us in our Instagram and Facebook page. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana, Chris, and Kimberly. Also, there's some comments for you in the chat, so you guys should check those out. You have some fans over there and some other opportunities, I guess, out there related to the work you do. So thank you for sharing, and especially thank you for sharing, the reasons why you do the work you do. It's really great for us to hear. So next up, I will pass the microphone along to our next group, the Collective. Go right ahead, you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Carlo. I am the head facilitator and organizer of the Young Adult Coalition called The Collective. We love you all and thank you all so much for the presentations and for everyone being here today and just sharing space. But I'm going to let Brian, who is one of our creative coordinators of The Collective, share a bit more about outreach, a bit more about joining our family, and just a lot more of what we do in the community. So Brian, I'm gonna let you take the mic.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian, and I am one of the creative content coordinators in The Collective. I have been a part of this amazing group for about a year now. So just a little bit about us. We are a public health coalition group that aims to educate and inform the public about the long-term health effects of tobacco use, as well as bring awareness to how the tobacco industry targets underrepresented communities. However, that's not just what we do. We also partner with a lot of other local organizations that focus on other issues and causes. So in many ways, our coalition works through an intersectional social justice framework. Through this kind of framework, we have and continue to improve our community by gathering observational data and sending out public opinion surveys so that we can collect this data to better understand San Diego's current policies as well as influence future public policies. We also have hosted several community events such as Common Unity. For those of you who don't know what Common Unity is, it's an art event that we hosted where we had a lot of awesome organizations, artists, and performers who are involved with a variety of different social causes coming together to share resources and experiences that kind of relate to a more grander, more collective cause. So we are planning one more event, hopefully by the end of this year, sometime in December. It's probably just going to be a small coffee get together where we share some space and talk about our experiences. Any updates on that, we'll probably share on our Instagram. So if you guys have an Instagram, follow us at Collective Coalition SD. Other than that, if anyone has like any questions or is interested in joining, you can feel free to send me an email. I'll probably post my email in the chat if that's allowed, as well as Carlo. Carlo has, he'll probably post his email somewhere and you can just send questions to him. Does anyone have questions right now?
No, but you can get one of those really cool hoodies.
Yeah.
You join.
So if you join, you get like one of these cool hoodies,
And in addition to not in addition, also for the Common Unity event that we threw in February, the art showcase, I just want to add that ACT was one of our main volunteers for the event. So we thank you, ACT, for being there. So shout out to the ACT youth. We want to build more collaboration with you all and look forward to sharing space with you all in the future. So thank you all again for letting us have this little collective announcement. And yeah.
Of course, thank you. All right, so then we'll move on to the next portion. We're almost done, and so we just wanted to display some of the posters that were submitted for the Student Digital Poster Competition. It's been running all week, and they've been submitting posters through Canva, through different outlets related to the Say Yes to My Future campaign. So here are a couple of the submissions that we've gotten. So those are all done by high school students, and the poster competition is still open all week. It will be closing October 31st. So if you know any students in your life, anyone in San Diego, any student under the age of 18 that's interested in submitting a poster, feel free to share with them this information. They can submit the poster to me, just email it directly, or to that link, but I have the flyer as well if you all would want to share it. But yeah, the winner gets a $50 gift card. So once we close it on the 31st, that'll be it. But yeah, hopefully we can get a couple more submissions, and some of the ACT youth should share one, should do one. But, oh, and then, so we did advertise that we would have an Eventbrite giveaway winner for those that registered. And actually the winner was Brian. So congratulations, Brian. And thank you for registering. You got the gift card. So congrats.
Thank you.
So just provide us with your email in the chat if you're comfortable, and we'll go ahead and email you that gift card.
All right. Thank you again.
Of course. So thank you all for coming to the forum today and for taking the time out of your day to be here. We hope that you learned something new. We hope that you got good information from it. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your night.
And thanks to Cynthia. She was the one who put this all together. This wouldn't have happened without her. So she put in a lot of work to put together.
Yay, Cynthia, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, presenters.
Yeah, thank you,
And
presenters as well.
Coalition.
We appreciate it. We've recorded it, so we'll share this out if you're all okay with that to students as far as we can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an extra large hoodie. Okay, double extra. Bye all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you.